Welcome to Hello Malaysia, and I am your host, Surati Samsi. Now, I know everyone knows what is Iskandar Malaysia, right? Iskandar Malaysia is set to become Southern Peninsula Malaysia's most developed region, where living, entertainment, environment, and business seamlessly converge within a bustling and vibrant metropolis. And for our topic for today is Iskandar Gets Creative. And for that, we have 4 guests in our studio right now, and the first one is Yang Berbahagia, Dato' Ismail Ibrahim, the Chief Executive of Iskandar Regional Development Authority, and on his left we have Michael Leek, the CEO of Pinewood Iskandar Malaysia Studios, and Encik Hasnul Hadi Samsudin, the Senior Manager of Rhythm and Hues Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and also the Deputy President of POSTAM, or the Association of Post-Production Animation and Creative Content Malaysia, and we have none other than Dane Syed, the writer and director of Aparat Sendirian Berhad. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about Iskandar Malaysia. Probably that could explain the history of Iskandar Malaysia.
Iskandar Malaysia is an economic region situated in the state of Johor with a size of 2,270 kilometers square. Established in 2006 with a vision to develop this region into a strong and sustainable metropolis of international standing. We focus on a 9 economic sector that we want to see developed and transform this region into a high-income region by the year 2025. And to date, we've been able to bring in quite a number of big catalytic projects, from out of which I think now for most of us have seen already taking place on
Probably
ground.
you can name a few of the projects in Iskandar Malaysia.
Well, we've got Legoland,
Yes.
we've got EduCity, we've got, of course, in healthcare and premium outlets. But what's more important is we've been able to create employment, and since 2006 we have been able to create more than 500,000 of employment from various categories,
Locals and
international.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've also been able to draw in committed investment since 2006 until about December of last year. We've been able to secure committed investment of 106 billion ringgit, 62% of which coming from local and the remaining from foreign investment. So this is how we've been developing Iskandar Malaysia. But what really is also equally important is that we want to bring Iskandar Malaysia into one that is of sustaining growth. Meaning we are not only concerned with economic development, but we want also to see social development as well as concern for the environment.
The well-being of
of people running in tandem with economic growth.
And what can we expect in 2013 or by 2023?
So far we've seen development in the tourism, in healthcare and education, but for 2013 we are looking forward to kickstart the creative sector, where Pinewood Iskandar Malaysia Studios will be spearheading this sector, which will be coming in towards the middle of this year.
And speaking of this Pinewood Iskandar Malaysia Studios, we let Mike speak on it as the CEO of Pinewood.
Thanks, Sue. The studios are in a collaboration between Khazanah Nasional and Pinewood Group out of the UK. It's very unique around the world that something like this is built, because this is a very integrated project. We have film stages, big television studios and post-production. So it enables a producer to walk in the front door with a script and leave with a project that's ready to go to broadcast television or to the cinema. One of the big things for us, of course, is that we want to see this grow as a hub for the region, a filmmaking hub for the region. So we're putting in your 2 12,000 square foot television studios, fully HD equipped. We're putting in 5 film stages with a total area of 100,000 square feet, and then a very high-end post-production facility, both sound and vision. One of the other things we're looking at doing at the moment, we're just running feasibility on, is putting a very large green screen tank in for filming projects that it's set at sea, such as things like Life of Pi, for instance. And this would be the only one in the Asia Pacific region. So it'll give us a real opportunity to attract production. And this is about attracting production from around the world.
Not only local, yeah.
Not only local, this is about bringing international production in and creating an international business within Malaysia, from which the local business, local production entity will also benefit from that.
Right, and back to that, why creative will be the next project that you think will be very exciting for Iskandar?
Well, in the area of creative as an economic sector, it is perhaps the next best thing happening in this region. We all know that filmmaking has always been part of Malaysia's growth, nation building, but we would like to see filmmaking making a big way, not only for Malaysia but for this region. In filmmaking is one of the subsector that we are seeing going to be growing, but what is also equally important is that coming up from this filmmaking industry, where Pinewood Studios will be involved in spearheading, will be the creation of a lot of opportunities for local people to be involved in the creative industry, and also employment they'll be generating out of it.
Right, and back to Michael, what can we expect once it's completed?
Well, as I said, it will be a big facility, a world-class facility, and the key thing for us with this facility is to build the infrastructure around it. Remember, we're building a studio here in a very greenfield operation. There is no film business in Iskandar. The film industry has been to date really focused in KL. So for us to build from scratch is very important for us to attract infrastructure, and we're working very closely with IRDA on that, but also training is a very important part of that. But it's also marketing ourselves internationally, but not only the studios. It's very important that we market Malaysia as a film-friendly destination. And we've been working very closely with FINAS, who is the government's film arm, how we can do that. And we've been going out around the world to big international markets, selling Malaysia as a destination for filming, but also selling the studios as a facility that can now do large international films.
Right, by doing the Pinewood Iskandar Studios, do you have any other studios that you're, for example, making an example to build the Pinewood Studios?
Yeah, look, studios, there are a lot of studios around the world, and we're working very closely with the Pinewood people on this. I ran a studio for 15 years in Australia of similar size to this. So, it's building it. The lucky thing for us is we're building from the ground up. So this is going to be a very high-tech facility. We were just talking earlier about connectivity. We've worked very closely with Telekom Malaysia in being able to deliver a 1 gigabyte per second broadband into the facility, not just one but two diverse connectivity routes, because if one goes down, we wouldn't be able, exactly right. But that's also scalable to 5 gigabytes. So we are able to move large film files anywhere in the world. Fast and efficiently, which is very important.
Right. We have to take a short break right now, and when we return, we'll continue discussing on this topic. So stay tuned on Hello Malaysia.
Menyelami realiti, menjejaki masa, meninjau peristiwa, paparan kronikal kembara kehidupan, pelbagai keunikan juga pengalaman menarik dari dalam dan luar negara. Segalanya disorotkan selama setengah jam dalam jurnal Bernama setiap Ahad jam 9.30 malam hanya di Bernama TV.
Tulisan Jawi adalah warisan bangsa Melayu silam yang digunakan secara meluas pada zaman dahulu dan masih dapat dilihat sehingga ke hari ini. Tulisan Jawi harus diterokai kehebatan dan keagungan oleh generasi masa kini agar warisan Melayu yang tersimpan hampir 1000 tahun dapat dikembangkan dan dimajukan. Marilah bersama kita menyemarakkan perjuangan penggunaan tulisan Jawi.
Right, thanks for staying with us on Hello Malaysia. And right before we went for a break, we were talking about Pinewood Iskandar Malaysia Studios. And with the recent announcement of 30% Film in Malaysia incentive, what does this would be creating for us in Malaysia?
Yeah, the 30% incentive was approved by the Economic Council back in March last year. Since then, the guidelines and the rules and regulations have been written, and we understand that they will probably be released this month. This is going to be a game changer for the industry. Not only will it help us to attract international production into Malaysia, it will put us on a level playing field with a lot of other countries, because many countries around the world have these incentives to attract production. But also, because this is also available to the local industry, it will help to grow the local industry here. And without a strong local industry, what we're doing with the studios is not going to really happen. So we need to have both a very strong local industry as well as a strong international industry.
And as the industry players for both of you, what does the incentive means to both of you?
Well, companies like us, post-production companies, animation companies, I think, end of the day, it helps us actually, look at, getting better quality budgets, and also at the same time be available for us to actually go to foreign companies out there and actually see how we can actually collaborate with them in co-productions and the rest. But strictly for rhythm and hues, I think at the end of the day, we can create more jobs here in Malaysia. I think more, the idea is, to bring more projects into the country, and then as a foreign company, and then at the same time, creating opportunities for more Malaysians to actually get involved with the industry.
Right, and as from the film industry?
For us, as you know, I mean, we're slightly different from what Hasnul does, because we're actually in the first stage of production.
True.
And for us, we're still shooting live and shooting on location or in the studio. And I think what's most important, at least from the perspective of production, really is, and until I know the details, I can only answer this in general, but it's the whole correlation between what we actually do on the ground and how we can improve. And that means time, efficiency, training, professionalism, all those things I think will help to, in many ways, only one aspect of it, but to help us make better films in many ways. But of course, there's the other aspect, which is the creative aspect, from script writing to, mainly from script writing, and also to produce better directors. And also the better directors in terms of how do we work with actors, how do we turn the script into something which is at the end of the day visual. I think all these aspects, I mean these are the details, and I think the only thing I can say is that I'm hoping that it will definitely grow and become better in the long run. Because I think that's the most important thing, from our perspective. How do we improve?
And I think a very important part of this incentive is that there is accountability now. There's real accountability to the industry, which is also going to grow people. The fact that at the end of the day, you have to have all your expenditure on the film now audited before you can get this incentive. So that again is going to bring, and it's going to bring a new level of people that are required within the industry, like production accountants and completion guarantors and those sorts of things. So that's going to build the business side of the film business here in Malaysia.
And just to add to that, I think what was mentioned is about professionalism, and what the government is doing as part of the economic transformation plan is also to look at creating sort of groups and associations that actually help grow the creative industries, and one of them is Creative Content Industry Guild. And its main purpose is to look at elevating the professionalism within the creative industries. And coming from what Din said, is that now the CCIG is looking at creating sort of what they call the IRF, the
Okay.
Creative Content Industry Recognition Framework.
Right.
And now we're able to actually, put professionals at, certain levels so that when, productions come in, or when Dane is looking for, certain people to staff on his film, he'll know exactly who are the people in there and what level of experience they are under this whole, directory of professionals.
And going forward that, we need a lot of talents, and especially experienced talents. And I think we're still lacking on that. So, Dato', how can we actually bring in more talents or creating more talents?
We have many creative talents in Malaysia, but while some are fully supported, but there are certainly certain gaps which is underserved, especially to prepare our filmmaking industry and its crew to support the international films. So there is still, much improvement that needs to be tackled in that area.
So any plans, or do we have trainings so far? Are we going to have that in Pinewood?
Yeah, well, in conjunction with Iskandar Regional Development Authority, we've launched a training program now, and working very closely with JPK NOS, the government skills training area, we're going to put in place, and we're out now looking and recruiting students to it. But it's a very interesting approach, actually. It's the first time it's ever been tried in Malaysia. We're focusing very much on below the line people, those people that really are the foot soldiers of making films, and targeting training there. But to get a quick win here, what we're taking is people who have gone through the NOS system, who've trained as a carpenter to build houses. We can train them how to build sets by cross-skilling them. Somebody who's learnt accounting, we can train them to be a production accountant. Hair and makeup the same. They've learnt how to go into a salon, but now we can cross-skill them. So very quickly we can train these people. And the good part about this, we're also going to be training the current NOS trainers. So this is sustaining this training program. We're bringing in the end of February 7 highly skilled professionals from Australia who have international credits and worked on a lot of international films to start this training. So it'll take place over 13 weeks. But at the end of that, we'll have trained the first batch around about 140 people. And our aim is by the end of this year to train 1,500 people. We're also taking people out of the industry who want to upskill as well. So current people that may be working in KL on films but want to upskill. So what it's going to do is create a bigger pool of talent for the whole country. There are a lot of people here in KL, but there are a lot of films being made here in KL as well. There were 50 films released last year, local films. So we need to expand that pool, and we need to upskill that pool as well.
As the industry players, Dane and Hasnul, what do you think that we are lacking, especially on the talents that we have here in Malaysia?
For me, I don't think the talent, we're not lacking in the talent.
The skilled ones.
What we're lacking in is the actual knowledge and the actual skill and how to apply those skills, right, within the context of the industry. But I'm interested. I mean, I think to take on what Mike's saying also. If you improve the ground conditions, as it were, and the skills on the ground, hopefully it has what it has is also a two-way effect, right? And it feeds in two ways. So you have, because otherwise it's a real problem, because you're inviting foreign productions in, but are they going to hire us? So then there's a question of transfer of technology. And of course, in many, I mean, it's not just about here. Even if they go and shoot anywhere else in the world, they will always have their own heads of department. But at least what I'm trying to say is, they can come in and they say, hey, this guy did, this is rhythm and hues. So why wouldn't they necessarily work with them? But that's going to take some process, and I think that's the right start to actually think of below the line, which was, I think, is really unique in many ways.
But I think very importantly, and the guidelines haven't been released there yet, but my understanding is that there will be a percentage requirement of foreign films coming into the state, into the country, of local workers, but also there will be a requirement for foreign production to take on trainee as well. So that means we're starting to to
Transfer
those skills to locals. And I
Right.
think that's going to help, because if you've got people that are working on higher budget films
Right.
and films with different, I guess, opportunities for people than they've had locally, they're going to then bring those skills back into what Dane is doing, or what Hasnell is doing, and what
Right.
other producers are doing.
Right.
Another key part of this is not going to stop here. We're going to train going to another 17 areas in post-production, in production management, in a whole range of those skills required. But more importantly, a part of this is to create very good masterclasses using very high-level international practitioners to come in and run masterclasses for the local industry,
And I
for
heard there's
local
a program
producers.
for this?
This is all part of the program that we're
Right.
developing with IRDA, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And currently, it's still in talks, or?
No. We will start the first training this month. We will have people
okay.
coming in to start the first. We want to do all this in 2013. It's a big challenge, but that's our aim, to get
Right.
this all done in 2013.
There are 7 courses, right, offered under
That's
the
7
program?
to start with, another 17 to follow.
Right, if you don't mind, can you explain a little bit on the courses?
The 7 courses, yes, will be construction for film and television. It'll be makeup for film and television. It'll be hair for film and television. Production accounting for film and television. Wardrobe, very important for film and television. Electricians, to train more electricians.
Okay.
And that wonderful art of grips.
Okay.
Those people that put the camera wherever it's required.
Right,
so
right.
it really is key below-the-line positions that we're going to train.
Right, and the courses that you have right now, what's the difference between the courses that they learn in the colleges?
Well, there's no really focused courses in this area at the
Right,
moment.
right.
There are a multitude of multimedia courses within the country.
Right.
A lot of universities are applying these, but they're a very broad education, so people coming out have not really focused in on one area. This gives us the opportunity to do that. The other part of it, of course, is that the University of Southern California, along with Multimedia University, are going to be opening, well, they've started foundation courses now, but they will open a campus in EduCity
Right.
in 2014, which is going to be a school of cinematic arts to focus on training producers, directors, writers, cinematographers, those key cinematic
Areas.
skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I can add to that, actually, I think it's an important question you asked, but I think one of the main things is also, we mustn't forget that when we all started, we start on our own,
True.
everyone. So therefore, but we must also understand that, in anything, in any industry, it's an evolutionary process. So in the West, for example, they've developed, or even like Japanese or Korean, and what happens is that there is an international standard.
Okay.
And that, if you've never been exposed to that, if you've
True.
never worked with international co-production, you wouldn't know that.
Right.
But what happens is that when you have a production here and you have those trainings that Mike's talking about, then you're also raising your production and so on and so forth to
Right.
an international standard,
Right.
which then becomes also another attractive factor.
Right.
Right?
This is the experience that we've also experienced.
Right.
In looking at the post-production side, Rhythm and Hues was here since 2009. We've been around in the business for 25 years. What we worked with the government to actually look at also training people.
Right.
And it's not just training people within our studios, but also to go out and actually work with the universities, look at their curriculum, work with the local industry in terms of elevating sort of what the needs are in the post-production. So we know it works.
Right.
So, and I think, this is great that Pinewood is doing this
Right.
together with Iskandar to actually look at the below the line stuff.
Right.
And this will give a more cohesive and industry going forward.
Right, the 7 courses that they initially having, is it beneficial to both of you?
Well, I don't know yet, but I'm sure it will be because just judging, because I think we have talked to Mike about this. We met somewhere in I can't remember, Busan or Hong Kong. But the point is, as an example, 2 to 3 years ago, we're a small company, but what we did was we sent, say for example, my producer, we sent her and she sent herself to a workshop and so on and so forth in Europe. And that's when it opened our eyes, actually.
Right.
That's when we learned that actually it's a totally different way of operating and there are different standards of operating. But
Right.
what happens is that it makes it easier because the whole world operates like that.
Yeah.
Then we're in sync
Right.
in terms of production.
Right.
And we're talking about, and for me, in terms of longevity, in terms of the long term, we have to be ambitious enough to say, it isn't just about making films for our own local market.
Right.
I mean, we have ambitions that we want at some point to be with local. I mean, that's what we did when we were with Bunhan. We're lucky that we had co-production, or we were talking to international people.
Right.
So our next step would be how do we work with when we want to talk about co-production?
Yes.
How do we work with foreigners? How do we work with
Right.
people from outside?
Right.
And it's everything from how money is reported, how money is spent, how money is calculated, right up to the legal aspects.
Right.
Right? And these are very important issues.
Right. Hasnul, do you want to add anything to
Well,
that?
I mean, I've been discussing with Mike anyways, and the idea is to actually look at how, even for a company like ours, Rhythm and Hues, to how to pitch Malaysia, right, at the end of the day. So, when we can bring in productions into Malaysia at the same time, we can pitch, hey, you know what, we have world-class companies here. We have world-class, local companies and foreign companies who can offer you the same services that you would get, anywhere else in the world. And this is where, I think that will give the benefit towards creating that whole industry,
And this is very important from an economic point of view. And this is why I think that the government has put the communications and content as one of the 12 programs in the Economic Transformation Program, why it's one of the 9 industries within Iskandar Malaysia, because there is great economic benefit for the country in this. And, the government didn't introduce this 30% incentive just on a whim.
Yes.
We put a lot of work into giving them details of what the economic benefit will be to the country. Our projections are that we will attract something like 1.9 billion ringgit worth of spend between when we opened in 2013 and 2020 into the country.
Right.
And that just doesn't get spent in the film industry. It flows out into the community in a whole range of areas.
Right.
And importantly, I think what Dane said, the incentive is really aimed for the local production at doing what Dane said, of internationalising the local industry, because again you're getting foreign earnings coming into the country, so it's more export
exposure.
earnings.
Okay, we'll take a short break right now, and when we return we'll continue with this topic right here on Hello Malaysia.
Masa, mengupas isu semasa, jadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Tengah SMS apa tu?
Ayah Bu, saya tengah semak saman kereta ma.
Semak saman? Pakai telefon saja.
Senang je. Saya pakai SMS. Saya hantar ke My SMS 15888.
Bukan setakat semak je tau. Banyak lagi.
Ya. Apa lagi?
Kamu boleh semak keputusan SPM dan STPM anak kamu. Semak status PLKN, buat aduan, semak status MyCard dan banyak lagi. Tak payah beratur panjang, minyak kereta pun jimat. Layari www.mysms.gov.my. My SMS 15888, mudah dan ringkas.
Ekonomi dunia. Berita terkini. Isu semasa. Segalanya baru dan benar hanya di Berita Dunia.
Right, thanks for staying with us on Hello Malaysia, and today's topic is Iskandar Gets Creative. Right, before we went for a break, we were talking about the talents and the courses that they have and also the incentive. But let's talk about the investments that we have there for the creative content. Probably Datuk could explain a little bit on that.
Yeah, we're looking at investment of around 3.8 billion, out of which 1.9 billion will definitely be spent here in Malaysia, and particularly in Iskandar Malaysia. I mean, in film industry, where production is worldwide, you can really never be able to land the whole investment in one place. But we really hope with the capacity that we are building, through various training programs and talents, we will be able to capture most of the investment here in Malaysia, if not in Iskandar Malaysia.
So what are some of the big names that invest in the Pinewood?
Well, in Pinewood being the lead in investing, I'm sure the big names will come in.
Right.
We will announce when
the time is right.
At the appropriate time.
Okay.
But what really is important here is the development of the pre-production, production, and the post-production value chain. Here, coming back to the area of developing the small and medium industry here in Malaysia as well as in Iskandar Malaysia, in the hope that by the development, as we have been discussing, we've been able to match the international production from coming in from talents within Malaysia.
Right, and speaking on employment opportunities, so what kind of employment opportunities are we expected to generate from the creative sector?
We are looking at a figure of about 9,500 of employment that is
local,
that will be coming out from this creative industry, particularly from Pinewood Iskandar Malaysia Studios, over a period of up to 2020. And of course, we would like to see most of this will be coming in from our very own local talents.
Right, and we were talking about the courses that they have. By having that courses, can we actually generate a skilled talents that we discussed beforehand?
Definitely, the whole idea of creating this course, at least at this initial stage, is about training the trainers, among others. So we will be able to gather local talent so that we will be able to enhance their skill by being trained by internationally renowned trainers in all the various fields like wardrobe and crew and all the rest of the stuff. So by doing that, we are creating not only a nucleus of skilled crews, but at the same time be able to spread out this skill from this first nucleus, crew that we've created from this training program that we have embarked upon at this initial stage.
Right, and we were talking about investment. It's very exciting when everything is new, when everything is on the go. But the question here is now, can we sustain the investment coming in? Going towards beyond 2020, can we sustain that?
If you look at the whole of the business model for Iskandar Malaysia, I mentioned earlier about focusing on the 9 sector.
Right.
Really, they are all interrelated.
Right.
At the end of the day, when we focus on the service sector as well as the manufacturing, it will together be able to transform this region into one that is of high income.
Right.
Now, the creative industry or in its economic sector is very important because it will generate not only the talent but also the right ingredients to enable, to assist this region, combining with all the other sectors to make this region more productive, more economically viable, and being able to make the local community well involved in the growth of its economy.
Right, let's talk about to the industry players. Do you think we can sustain this investment and this, people coming and looking at Malaysia as, the new region for them to do their production and all beyond 2020?
Well, for sure. At the end of the day, it's not just about looking at bringing foreign productions into Malaysia, but how local productions can grow as well.
Yeah.
And because of this, everybody coming together with the skills, with the talent, with the experience, and also growing the level of professionalism within the industry. Now we're able to create better content, better stories, and better films. And this is where I think at the end of the day, the industry can become sustainable, where we're able to export whatever we're doing now outside into the global market.
Right, and there's a lot of platforms out there, they're no longer looking at, the films and TV production. We have YouTubes out there. So why do you think that we could sustain, having Pinewood here and having, studios? They can always just do it online right now.
Right.
So, yeah, they can, but one of the great things about this, of course, is the more platforms there are, the more content is required.
Okay.
Be that international films coming in here
Right.
or local films being made. It gives more opportunities for producers to get their content out there. And I
Right.
think that's the most important thing. Remember, we've got a young audiences growing up on smartphones or on iPads and those sorts, and that's where they're watching a lot of their content. However, that's the audience as well. So many of those kids are also going to the movies.
Right.
I think part of what we also need to do as we move the industry forward is educate people to look at better films, to look at more interesting films. You know, in the US, you know, there are a range of films this year that are up for the Academy Awards that are all not big studio blockbusters.
Yes.
Things like Argo, Silver Linings Playbook, etc. They're the sorts of films that need an audience that you sort of have to educate to some
Right.
degree.
Yeah.
And I think they're the sort of areas that the local industry really has to play a big part of doing.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's like what Mike and Dr. Ismail's been saying. I mean, throughout this whole session we're having here, I think the key thing is, for me, as a filmmaker, is the growth and the actual training.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, what you have is a base within which we can work with towards better product and better, and therefore a better industry.
Right.
And I think for the future also, I mean, I think, you know, you will get younger people coming in and so on and so forth. And I think what's really, really important, you know, is that it becomes more competitive.
right.
And therefore, when it becomes more competitive, the industry will regulate itself.
Right.
In the way that you know, it regulates itself, and it then sifts the serious players from the
Right.
fly-by-nights.
Right.
And so therefore, you know, it becomes a very serious industry, and therefore people will look at it and I think give it the kind of respect and say, okay, this is what, and this will spread throughout the whole economy. Actually,
Yes.
there will be people who are not, perhaps even like, you know, corporations and other people who say, actually, we want to invest in this area
Right.
because it's a worthwhile investment.
Yes. Okay.
And that's for the future.
Right. We're talking about investment. Let's talk the benefit to the local industry players and the talents that we have here by having the creative content in Iskandar Malaysia. Speaking on the locals, does it really give you a benefit, or because we're not producing a lot of big projects or big films, where they will need to have experience, right? So how could Iskandar Malaysia or the creative content in Iskandar helped the local industry?
I think at the end of the day, again, giving that opportunity for all these foreign productions to come into Malaysia will actually elevate the professionalism within the country, and this will actually help the local industry grow in terms of the talent base and the talent pool. For us in Rhythm and Hues, the guys that we create, the 150 people who are doing world-class work, and they're getting mentored by supervisors that from Los Angeles almost every day, getting to understand what it means to be world-class, right? To get their work to be world-class. And these are the things that when my artists come to me and say, you know what, Hasno, at the end of the day, I never knew I could be pushed that far.
Okay.
And they still get pushed put that far to actually get to the level that we as paying publics want to pay to watch whenever we watch a film.
Right.
We expect the best out of Hollywood, and these are what the things that these guys are doing out of Hollywood.
Right.
So once these guys have been in the industry, doing the work that they're doing for a long time, they will start to realize, hey, you know what? I want to do my own things. I want to get out. I want to do my own things, and this is where the spin-offs would come out.
Right.
These guys will come out. Yeah.
It is not only about the direct benefit,
Yes.
but really what is more important is the indirect benefit.
Okay.
Because coming out of this filmmaking industry, definitely there will be demand. For example, accommodation, demand for all the support service, transportation, F&B, all the other that supports this industry.
Right.
And that would, with all this business activity taking place,
The tourism.
people might not necessarily be involved directly with the filmmaking
Yes.
industry, but
Okay.
involved in the economy that is growing and seeing the filmmaking industry providing that support. And I
Right.
think this will really benefit the people of Iskandar Malaysia.
Right.
You're totally right. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where the SMEs will actually get involved.
Yes.
Yeah, simple, just like us. We offer. I mean, this is a very simple experience. We offer free breakfast every day to our artists. So who do we call? It's just the local guys who are creating nasi lemak and whatever. Right. So these will help them grow also at the same time.
But it's also getting Malaysia's name on the international map. And you sort of just mentioned tourism, and that's, again, a big crossover out of this. Film tourism is huge around the world. Right. Look at New Zealand after Lord of the Rings, and again after Hobbit.
Yeah.
Tourism increased there exponentially. 30, 50 years probably later, Austria still gets 300,000 people a year visit there to go and see where Sound of Music was made.
Yes. So I would like to go there as well.
It's a huge industry, and it's getting Malaysia out there. But that's also going to help people like Dane and producers like Dane. When they go in to see somebody, people say, yes, Malaysia, I know the quality of work we can get from that. And that's where the big spin-off.
Let's talk about the filmmaker, Is it true that Malaysia now has been recognised? If we have the creative content industry in Iskandar Malaysia, that we're putting Malaysia out there.
I think, of course. I mean, I think, I'm not speaking just about myself alone. I think there's been another film this year, and people like us know. So I think it's small steps. But again, to remind you, when you were saying just now, I don't think for us independent players, it's not necessarily big projects.
Right.
It's actually quality projects.
Right.
It's actually quality films, right? And that's what we're talking about. And when you look at some films, they're not necessarily big, but they make huge amounts of money. It's like A Separation and some of the other films in the history of those small films that have gone to the Oscars and they're foreign films.
Right.
They've made money. Right. And so, again, so I define that. But in terms of production for small independent players like us, I mean, like I said, we look forward to what is going to happen in the next, and I think it's timely, and we need to grab those opportunities, and it creates, hopefully it will create more opportunities. And for us, like I said, it's not about just a small market, we need to be able to push Malaysian products, to answer your question, to the gateway, to the doorway of at least the first step is international co-production.
Right.
But I think importantly, which is what is going to help, is getting the film industry on the radar of government and it's getting it on the radar of the private sector. Here's a very large, a 400 million ringgit investment. There must be something here. So I think that's important. And as we move forward, it's very important for the local industry to be able to attract independent finance. And I think as people see more and more that this is an industry, then the whole industry is going to benefit from it.
Right. Okay, we'll take a short break right now, and when we return, we'll talk more on this topic right here on Hello Malaysia. So stay tuned.
Catch Bernama Today every weekday from 9 a.m. onwards for the latest news, lifestyle stories, interesting personalities. Only on Bernama TV.
Sebuah transformasi negara ke arah memperkasakan perkhidmatan awam. Pusat Panggilan 1 Malaysia, One MOCC, melalui 5 saluran komunikasi, telefon, SMS, faksimili, email, media sosial, bagi sebarang pertanyaan, aduan dan cadangan, melangkaui ekspektasi rakyat. 24 jam, 7 hari seminggu, ke arah memartabatkan Malaysia di pesada dunia. Cepat, mudah, tepat. Hanya satu nombor, 03 8000 8000.
Girang gemilang atau penuh kecundang, paparan kegairahan, laporan sukan tanpa sempadan, wadah bertenaga dan terkini, sukan at Bernama TV.
Right, thanks for staying with us on Hello Malaysia, and we had a very heat discussion right now when we had a break where I asked Mike actually, are Pinewood giving more attention to the local industry players or the international? So, Mike?
Look, because this is such a large investment, we of course have to look at international players. We need to attract films that are going to use 3 or 4 stages on any one of their production. However, and it has been reported, we do have an MOU with Astro for them to produce out of our television studios. So in that aspect, we will be working with the local industry. But we also see opportunity. And a couple of months ago, the Minister was down looking at the studios and he asked the same question.
Right.
And I think it's very important for us to be supportive of the local industry. There's nothing worse than having empty stages. So we will always look to help with the local industries. And in fact, Pinewood in the UK does this as well with the local English industry, with the independent industry there.
And you were talking about Australia, where they thought they would, the studio would kill the local industry.
Yeah, in Australia when we first set it up, everyone thought that would happen. That all you're going to do is attract foreign production. It'll be the death of the local industry. The truth of the matter is, before I took this job, I was actually producing a film in the studios in Australia, and of all the production there were about 4 productions there at the stage. 3 of them were Australian productions.
Right.
A small local television series, the producer of which we're trying to attract here to set up his business. The film that I was working on, the first Australia-Singapore co-production, and another local film. So it does, and I saw the same thing happen in 1990, approximately, when the studios were open in Australia. It was a very similar situation to here, but what we saw was people grew, and local films got better and so on. Australia went through some very strong areas of film production, but again they were very much driven by incentive and tax rebates and those sorts of things. So I think this incentive again will be a driver for the local industry.
Then you would like to add to what Mike just said about being competitive with the international market?
I mean, then, yeah, of course, like I said, I think I've said it earlier on, what it does do is actually then your perception of how you operate as a filmmaker and how you make films changes.
Right.
That means you don't write a script in 2 weeks and think that you can just shoot it out there.
Right.
That means you have to really start seriously thinking
quality,
about how serious you are as a filmmaker.
Right.
And therefore, in that way, you look at things competitively. And for me, I can only say that, from my own perspective and my producer, is to actually get to a point where our product is good enough to travel, one, and that also attracts then co-production.
Right.
As I keep saying, yeah.
If I may add, this is the whole thing about the economic development of Iskandar Malaysia. Not only in the creative industry or sector, in the area of healthcare, the area of education. Even though we bring in, foreign investment in the form of, say, internationally renowned universities, that doesn't mean that we want to sideline the local players. But what really is that we are creating an ecosystem where local players can work side by side in developing and strengthening the growth of that particular sector.
Right.
So the same with creative, the same with filmmaking, so that local film makers can work hand in hand, not only setting benchmark, but also coming up with and gaining a lot from it.
Yeah.
Right.
And for instance, I'm already training my successor.
Right.
And we're doing a lot of that, in-house training, so that we are, and he's a local Malaysian. So what we're trying to do is that whilst we only have 12 staff at the moment, 3 of which are expats, but each of those expats is training someone locally to take over. So they're getting the benefit of this knowledge transfer.
Right.
And I think that's a very important thing. And I think that's one of the key things that IRDA is doing and IskandarMalaysia is doing, is giving that opportunity for expats to come into the country, but giving that real opportunity for knowledge transfer, no matter what the industry is.
Right. And we were talking about, getting Hollywood to come over here, and you were giving me this interesting comment about getting the Hollywood over here. So could you care to tell the audience?
Yeah, what we're talking about, you asked me if we're bringing blockbusters here.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to see that in the first year.
Yeah.
What we need to do is build the industry here. So lower budget films, there'd be high budget films compared to Malaysia. I'm talking about 5 million to 20 million US dollars, which is around 15 million ringgit to 100 million ringgit, which is bigger than the budget, the annual budget of films here. But it's attracting television, international television.
Right.
I'm a great believer in television being a training ground. It's sustaining, it's long term. You're doing it week after week after week.
Right.
And I think that's, if we can get international television here, and that's what happened in the studios in Australia. The first production that went in there, I actually was the producer on. It was a remake of the Mission Impossible television series.
Right.
And that really built the quality of the local crews, the quality of the local infrastructure.
Right.
Interesting, when we were talking previously about investment,
Yes.
one of the things that's being established alongside the studios is an area called Media at Medini, which is a creative industry village for us to build the infrastructure. And just today it was reported that a Singaporean developer has taken a large piece of that land, and we've been working with them in developing what will be required for the industry. Offices for companies like Hasnell's to set up, places where film rental companies can set up, places where producers can set up. So what we're trying to build is a creative industries campus, so that we have this big creative industries campus.
Right. It doesn't mean that we're not taking the Hollywood in, but it's just not the blockbusters yet.
Not the blockbusters yet.
And you were giving me an interesting, why shouldn't we get the blockbusters in? Because because if we do and we failed, we probably
Well, no, I mean, in a way, I think I was just reiterating what Mike is saying. I mean, I think we need to be ready for the kind of work that we want to bring into this country. And I think, it's measured steps, and I think it's managing those expectations and those dreams that we have in the future. You can't just go in and then suddenly, if it all goes sour, then it's like, it just sours our name.
Right.
So I think that's what I was saying.
But like
as us with them and Hughes, we are Hollywood.
Yeah, you are.
Right, and we're very proud that we're a Malaysian company.
Yes.
We're very proud we're part of the Malaysian industry, and the reason for that is that we've had a really good experience here.
Yes.
Well, 98% of the people who work in our studio are Malaysians, right? And this is testament to say that local Malaysians are able to actually do the world-class work that expected by Hollywood.
How can all these experiences, especially I'm talking to the local industry, can that thing trickle to the other SMEs? How can you trickle all this?
That's for sure. I mean, within Rhythm and Hughes, we've been doing a lot of master classes, a lot of training programs. We do what we call finishing school programs. We bring in professionals, graduates from the local universities. We train them for 3 months, and then they go out into the industry or they come into Rhythm and Hughes. We also do what we do together, like with the Iskandar talent program, is train the trainers. So we actually bring lecturers from all the local universities, even those from Iskandar, to come into our studio, understand what we expect from the students that come up from the universities, how to prepare portfolios, what are the needs for a production pipeline. So all these things actually help develop the local local industry. And because we need that. If we're going to grow, we need to add another studio somewhere.
Right.
We need those people, and we need to invest now.
Right. Okay. And talking about training and all, there's another 17 courses remaining will be offered. Could you care to tell us about the 17?
Yeah, that's the next step. We need to train more people in the management area, production managers, assistant directors, and those types of people into areas that are more internationally based, that they understand internationally accepted software and internationally accepted paperwork, how they do stuff. But importantly also, because we're creating a television facility down there, we need to train television cameramen, television sound people. So there's still a long way to go in the areas that we have to train. But we have a real focus on this. We have a great team. We have a very strong relationship. And the good thing is that we're getting great response to it. And I think that's the important thing, that people out there want to do it. But one of the key things. One of the schools down, Marlborough College is just open, for instance, has a creative industries program. And one of the things that I see needing to happen here, as we want to bring people in, we need to show careers advisors in schools, we need to show parents, we need to show teachers and students that there is an industry here. There's a career path for them. You know, it's a very different industry than Malaysia. The creative industries is not something that Malaysia per se is focused on. But I think now is the time to do that.
Right, we're almost to the end of the program. So Dato', last word from you. So how could this Pinewood or Iskandar Malaysia, in Iskandar Malaysia, would benefit the economy and the whole throughout Malaysia?
We have given a lot of thought on this creative sector as one of the engine for economic growth, and we believe strongly that in the area of creative is not only will benefit Iskandar, but definitely for the nation, and the impact that it will have not only for bringing benefit to the people who live and work in Iskandar, but the greater impact for the region and also for the whole world.
Right. And from the industry players, last word, any last word coming for the Pinewood?
Okay, and I think for us, Pinewood, my producer and I and our part, I think that, you know, it's timely, because I think we look forward to the next stage of development in the creative industry, particularly in films. And being a small company, I mean, I think for us, is the most important thing is you know, for the betterment and the growth of the way that we can make films.
Right.
Yeah, that's it for us.
And Hasnul, your next vote?
Very simple. I want to see the local guys, the same guys who do post-production move up, and for us to actually also be involved locally also, as a foreign company, to be involved locally and within local productions also. And for that to happen, you know, we need to look at how we can raise the quality of the budgets that we work on. So we'll be very excited to see what's going to happen within the next 7-10 years.
Right, and Mike, from you?
Look, I think this is a very important step for the country, you know, in doing something like this. And this was Khazana's view. Let's do something that's big and iconic to help grow the industry. And they have a very long-term and a very big picture view of how we can grow this industry. They understand how important this creative industry can be for the economic growth of the country.
Right, and thank you so much. Thank you, Dane. Thank you, Hasnul. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Dato', for being with us and talk to us on Iskandar Gets Creative, which is on Pinewood. So thank you so much out there for watching us on Hello Malaysia. And until I see you real soon, so goodbye.